You're standing in your bathroom right now holding a tube of toothpaste that costs $8. The label promises whitening, enamel protection, cavity defense. 14 claims in total. I counted them on the box this morning. 40 miles from where I'm sitting, in Holmes County, Ohio, there's a grandmother named Ruth, 73 years old. She's never bought that tube, not once in her life, and she still has 31 of her 32 original teeth. The Amish never built a dental office, they never trained a dentist, they never spent a single dollar on a tube from the store, not in 200 years. The reason is a paste that fits in a mason jar and costs less than $2 to make. By the end of this video, I'll tell you the 4 ingredients in that tin. And I'll share one sentence buried on page 9 of a 2017 University at Buffalo study. One sentence the researchers almost left out that explains why an 80-year-old Amish man still has 26 of his 32 original teeth. This works whether you're building a homestead from scratch or whether you're 68 years old standing in the same bathroom you've used for 40 years. Let me back up to that kitchen table in Holmes County, because that's where my whole understanding of dental care fell apart. Ruth's name was Ruth, and she was 73 years old. She had every single one of her natural teeth except one molar she'd lost in her 40s from a horse kick. 73 years old, no dentist, no insurance, no professional cleanings. She smiled at me and her teeth looked like they belonged to a woman 30 years younger. I'd grown up in that part of Ohio. I'd watched my own father lose his teeth one by one starting in his 50s, even though he brushed twice a day with the most expensive toothpaste on the shelf at the drugstore in Millersburg. By the time he was Ruth's age, he had a full set of dentures that clicked when he ate. He'd spent close to $14,000 on dental work over his lifetime. Ruth had spent maybe $200 total, most of that on the salt and baking soda she bought at the bulk store. The math didn't make sense to me. So I started asking questions. And what I learned over the next 3 years, sitting in Amish kitchens from Lancaster all the way out to Geauga County, is that the modern dental industry has built a multi-billion-dollar empire on a problem that the Amish solved with kitchen ingredients in the 1820s. Here's the first thing you need to understand. The toothpaste you buy at the store is not designed to make your teeth healthier. It's designed to make your mouth feel clean. There's a difference. And that difference is worth thousands of dollars to the companies that sell it to you. The foaming agent in commercial toothpaste, sodium lauryl sulfate, is the same chemical they use in industrial degreaser. It strips the natural oils from your gum tissue. The artificial sweeteners feed the very bacteria you're trying to kill. The carrageenan they add as a thickener was actually flagged in 2016 at the National Organic Standards Board hearing in St. Louis as a potentially harmful additive, and yet it's still in nearly every brand on your shelf. Ruth didn't know any of that science. She didn't need to. She just knew what her mother taught her, and her mother before that, going back to the original Anabaptist settlers who came over from Switzerland and Germany in the 1700s, they brought a recipe with them. A recipe that costs almost nothing and works better than anything you can buy. The base of the Amish paste is baking soda. 1 teaspoon. That's the abrasive that gently scrubs the plaque off your enamel without scratching it. Baking soda also neutralizes the acids that cause cavities. Your mouth has a pH balance, and when it tips toward acidic, your enamel starts to dissolve. Baking soda pushes that pH back to neutral within 30 seconds of brushing. That single ingredient does more for your teeth than the $8 tube ever will. The second ingredient is fine sea salt, half a teaspoon. The salt does 2 things. It acts as a mild antiseptic, killing the bacteria that cause gum disease. And it pulls inflammation out of your gum tissue through osmosis. If you've ever had a sore throat and gargled with salt water, you already know how this works. The Amish have been using salt on their gums for 2 centuries because it stops gum recession before it starts. The third ingredient is where most people get surprised. A small pinch of turmeric. Just a pinch. That bright yellow spice contains a compound called curcumin, which has been studied repeatedly for its anti-inflammatory properties. In Amish kitchens, they don't call it curcumin. They just call it the yellow root. Their grandmothers learned it worked, and they never needed a lab to confirm it. The fourth and final ingredient is a few drops of clove essential oil. The active compound in clove oil is called eugenol, and it has been used as a dental analgesic for at least 2,000 years. The Chinese were chewing whole cloves in the court of the Han Dynasty around 200 BC, and dentists were required to chew them before approaching the emperor. In 1640, a French apothecary named Pierre Pommet wrote that clove oil applied to an aching tooth would stop the pain within minutes, and modern research has confirmed exactly why. Studies published in the Journal of Dentistry in 2006 and again in 2012 showed that eugenol kills the specific bacteria responsible for cavities, Streptococcus mutans, more effectively than several prescription mouthwashes. You can buy a 1-ounce bottle of clove oil at any health food store for about $8, and that bottle will last you over a year if you only use a few drops at a time. That's it. 4 ingredients. Total cost, when you buy the materials in bulk, which the Amish always do, comes to about $1.90 for a batch that lasts a family of 6 for almost 2 months. Compare that to your $8 tube that lasts one person 3 weeks. But here's where the story gets darker, and you need to understand this before we go any further. The reason you've never heard about this paste isn't because it doesn't work. It's because somebody made sure you wouldn't hear about it. In 1793, when yellow fever swept through Philadelphia and killed nearly 5,000 people in the span of 3 months, the Amish communities in Lancaster County watched their English neighbors die at rates that horrified them. The cities were dying, the countryside was not. And one of the things the Amish noticed, recorded in family letters that have survived in archives at Elizabethtown College, was that their teeth and gums stayed healthy even during periods of food scarcity, even when sugar was rationed, even when the harvests came in poor. A bishop named Christian Burkholder wrote in a letter dated November of that year that the community had not lost a single tooth to rot in the previous 18 months, and he credited what he called the morning washing, which was the salt rinse passed down from his grandmother, who had learned it from a Swiss midwife back in the old country. Fast forward to 1847. A traveling dentist named Dr. Solomon Brown made a tour through Pennsylvania farm country looking for patients, because dentistry was a new profession then and practitioners were drumming up business wherever they could find it. Brown kept a journal, and in that journal he complained that the Amish settlements were a waste of his time. He wrote that he could not find enough decay to justify staying more than 2 days. He wrote that the children had teeth like polished ivory and the grandparents still had most of theirs. He left frustrated and went back to Philadelphia, where business was booming because city people were already eating refined sugar and white flour and drinking coffee sweetened with molasses 3 times a day. The American Dental Association was founded in 1859 by 26 dentists meeting in Niagara Falls, New York. Within 40 years, it had become one of the most powerful trade lobbies in the country. In 1914, the ADA partnered with a major toothpaste manufacturer to begin promoting commercial paste as the only acceptable form of oral care. Before that year, most American families made their own dentifrice at home, using recipes nearly identical to what the Amish still use today. The campaign was relentless. Magazines, radio, eventually television. Within 30 years, the idea of homemade toothpaste had been pushed to the margins, treated as primitive, unscientific, even unhygienic. The Amish didn't get the memo. They kept making their paste. They kept their teeth. Now think about what you've spent on dental care in your lifetime. The average American man over 60 has spent somewhere between $18,000 and $40,000 on dental work, depending on how often you've gone in. Cleanings, fillings, crowns, root canals, whitening treatments, extractions, implants. The dental industry in this country generates over $160 billion a year. And a huge percentage of that revenue exists because we were taught, very deliberately, to depend on professionals for something our great-grandparents handled at home with a mason jar and a wooden spoon. I'm not telling you to never see a dentist. If you have an abscess, you need help. If you have a serious problem, modern dentistry can save your life. But the daily, weekly, monthly maintenance of your teeth, the part that costs you the most over time, was never supposed to require a professional. That's a story they sold you, and it worked. In 1900, the average American adult had lost 6 teeth by age 40. By 1950, that number had climbed to 11. By 1980, despite the explosion of commercial toothpaste, fluoridated water and a dentist on every corner, the average had only dropped to 9. We were spending more on dental care than any society in human history, and we were still losing teeth at a rate our great-great-grandparents would have considered a tragedy. Meanwhile, surveys of Amish adults over 60 have consistently shown that they retain on average 26 of their original 32 teeth. 26. With no fluoride, no professional cleanings, no electric toothbrushes, just the paste, just the rinse. Just the discipline of doing the same small thing every single morning for 80 years. There's a study I want you to know about because it changed how I understood this whole thing. You can pull it up yourself tonight. Search PMC Amish Children Dental 2017 University at Buffalo. I'll wait. In 2017, researchers from the University at Buffalo published a paper titled Oral Health and Medical Conditions Among Amish Children. They went into Amish communities and they expected to find disaster. 86.6% of the children were uninsured. 27.8% had never seen a dentist in their entire lives. The average travel distance to the nearest dental office was over 10 kilometers, and a quarter of families had to travel more than 14 kilometers if they needed care. By every metric the modern world uses, these kids should have had terrible teeth. The researchers were prepared to recommend major intervention, and there were certainly problems they found, especially among the children who had started consuming modern processed sugars at the local stores. But what surprised them, what didn't make it into the headlines, was how many of the older Amish, the ones who had stuck strictly to traditional foods and traditional oral care, still had remarkable dental health well into their 70s and 80s. The University at Buffalo dental students who visited Sherman, New York, in July 2011 sat on the lawn of an Amish farm and talked with families who had been making their own paste for generations. The students went back that November, expecting to see a few dozen mothers and children. Over 100 showed up. The community was eager to share what they knew, but only with people who would actually listen. That's the part that hit me. The knowledge has been there the entire time. Sitting in those kitchens, passed down from grandmother to granddaughter. Nobody locked it in a vault. Nobody made it illegal. They just made sure the rest of us would never look in that direction. They made the homemade paste sound primitive while charging us $40,000 over our lifetimes for the alternative. And here's something nobody mentions. The Amish don't have fluoride in their well water. The University at Buffalo researchers specifically noted that the Amish drink well water that lacks fluoride. The mainstream argument has always been that fluoride is essential to prevent decay. But these people, drinking unfluoridated water, brushing with homemade paste, eating bread baked from grain they grew themselves, were keeping their teeth longer than people who got fluoride pumped into every glass of city water. Now, if you already own a house and you're thinking this only applies to people building a homestead from scratch, stay with me. Because this next part is specifically for you, the man sitting in a home built before 1980, looking at a medicine cabinet full of bottles you can't pronounce. You don't need to change a single thing about your house to start using the Amish paste this weekend. You don't need to dig up your water line. You don't need to install a filter. You don't need to call a contractor. You need a small mason jar, the 4 ingredients I mentioned, and about 10 minutes of time on a Saturday morning. The materials are at any grocery store. The baking soda is in the baking aisle. The sea salt is right next to it. The turmeric is in the spice section. The Clove essential oil is at any health food store or even online for under $10 for a bottle that will last you 2 years. Mix 1 teaspoon of baking soda with half a teaspoon of fine sea salt in a small bowl. Add a pinch of turmeric, just enough to turn the mixture pale yellow. Add 3 to 5 drops of Clove essential oil. Stir it with a wooden spoon, never metal, because metal can react with the clay if you decide to add bentonite later, which is a variation some Amish families use. Transfer to a small jar with a lid. To use it, dip a damp toothbrush directly into the powder or wet your finger and dab some onto the bristles. Brush gently for 2 minutes. Spit, rinse, that's it. Within 2 weeks, you'll notice your gums stop bleeding when you brush, if they were bleeding before. Within a month, the tartar buildup that your dentist scrapes off twice a year stops accumulating at the same rate. Within 3 months, you'll feel a difference in your mouth that's hard to describe. It's the absence of the slight inflammation that most adults have learned to live with. the constant low-grade irritation that the commercial paste was actually causing. I want to address something now, because I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, my dentist would never recommend this. Of course he wouldn't. Your dentist makes his living from the consequences of you using the wrong paste. I'm not saying he's a bad person. I'm saying his business model depends on you being a regular customer. And the Amish, by making their own paste, took themselves off the customer list. That's the real reason this knowledge has been pushed aside. Not because it's dangerous, not because it doesn't work, but because if everyone made their own paste, the entire dental products industry would lose billions overnight. I told you in the beginning that I had something I found buried in the 2017 University at Buffalo study, something on page 9 that the researchers almost left out. I want to give you that now, because you've earned it. Before I do, one quick thing. Everything I have been digging out of these old kitchens and these archives, the 4-ingredient paste you just learned about, the morning rinse I am about to walk you through, the brick wall behind the stove from the heating video, the Type L copper for the water system, the cotton muslin from the attic, and all the other pieces I have pulled out of Lancaster County and Holmes County over the years. I have put it all in one place, room by room, season by season, in the order the families actually use it. It is called the Amish Home System. Link is in the description. But stay right here, because the one sentence on page 9 of the Buffalo study is the practice that explains why an 80-year-old Amish man still has 26 of his original teeth. The study tracked Amish children, but the researchers also documented the older generation, the grandparents and great-grandparents, in passing. Buried in the discussion section, almost as a footnote, the researchers noted that the most dental resilient elders in the survey shared one specific habit that the younger generation was beginning to lose. It wasn't just the homemade paste, it wasn't just the well water, it was a practice the Amish call the morning rinse. Before they brush, before they eat, before they even drink water in the morning, the elders would take 1 teaspoon of unrefined salt, dissolved in a small glass of warm water, and they would swish it through their mouth for 60 seconds. Not gargle, swish, pulling it between their teeth, working it around their gums. Then they would spit it out and only then begin their day. The morning rinse does something the toothpaste alone cannot do. When you sleep, the bacteria in your mouth multiply rapidly because your saliva production drops by almost 90% overnight. By the time you wake up, you have somewhere between 10 and 20 billion bacteria sitting on your teeth and gums. If you eat breakfast or drink coffee first, you're literally washing those bacteria into your stomach and across the surface of your teeth, where they begin producing acid the moment they hit sugar or carbohydrates. The morning rinse kills the overnight bacteria before you give them anything to feed on. This is the practice that I believe explains why some Amish elders still have nearly all their teeth at 80 years old. It's not magic. It's not luck. It's a 60-second habit that costs nothing and that not 1 in 10,000 Americans has ever heard of. I asked a bishop in Lancaster County where the practice came from. He said his great-grandfather brought it over from a village near Bern, Switzerland in the 1830s. The practice predates modern dentistry by a century. It survived because nobody could profit from it. Here's how you do it. Tonight, before bed, dissolve 1 teaspoon of unrefined sea salt or Himalayan pink salt in 8 ounces of warm water. Set it on your bathroom counter. In the morning, the very first thing you do, before coffee, before water, before food, take a mouthful of that salt water, swish it slowly for 60 seconds, push it between every tooth, pull it across your gums, then spit it out and rinse with plain water, then brush with the Amish paste. Do that for 30 days, just 30 days. You will notice changes you have not felt in years. The slight bad taste in your mouth in the morning will disappear. Your gums will firm up. The sensitivity in your back molars, if you have it, will start to fade. And the next time you go to your dentist for a cleaning, he will ask you what you've been doing differently. I promise you he will ask, because he sees mouths every day and yours will look different. Think about the math one more time, because I want this to land. A tube of name brand toothpaste costs around $4 and lasts about a month. That is $48 a year per person. For a family of 4, almost $200 a year just on toothpaste. Over a lifetime of 80 years, one person spends close to $4,000 on toothpaste alone, and that does not include mouthwash, floss, whitening strips, electric toothbrush replacement heads, or the thousands more spent on the dental work that toothpaste was supposed to prevent in the first place. The Amish paste, made at home, comes out to roughly $12 a year per family. $12 for everyone in the house for the entire year. The most important thing I can tell you tonight is this: you did not lose your teeth because you were unlucky. You did not lose them because you didn't brush enough. You lost them, or you're losing them, because the system that was supposed to help you was actually feeding off you. The Amish figured that out 200 years ago. They didn't write a book about it. They didn't go on television. They just kept making their paste, kept doing their morning rinse, kept their teeth, and let the rest of us spend $40,000 learning the same lesson the hard way. If you are the kind of man who believes that real knowledge has been quietly pushed aside to protect someone else's profit, then you already know what to do next. You make the paste this weekend. You start the morning rinse tomorrow. You stop being a customer of an industry that needs you sick to stay rich. I want to hear from you in the comments below. Tell me one thing. How much do you estimate you've spent on dental work in your lifetime? Add it up. Cleanings, fillings, crowns, the whole list. Drop that number in the comments. I want to see what this audience has paid out, because I think the total is going to shock all of us. And tell me, did your grandmother or your grandfather ever mention making their own toothpaste or doing a salt rinse? I'm collecting these stories because the knowledge survived in more American families than people realize. It just got quiet. If you found value in this, subscribe to the channel. This isn't about supporting me. This is about joining a group of people who are recovering knowledge that was taken from us. Real knowledge. Practical knowledge. The kind that puts money back in your pocket and keeps your body strong. Next week, I'm going to share what I found out about the Amish remedy for arthritis pain that uses 3 things you already have in your kitchen, and one of them is something you've been throwing away your whole life. You won't want to miss that one. Make the paste. Do the rinse. Tell somebody you love. The Amish have been waiting 200 years for the rest of us to catch up. It's about time we did.